low interest rate on our loan right now, and interest rates are not that low these days. The loan we have is good until the end of 27, at which point we'll have to refinance whatever remaining amount we owe. We are paying $20,000 a month toward the loan, but the minimum payment per month is $14,000. So, last slide on this is just how we manage the cash. Our rule of thumb is that we keep 6 months of mortgage payments in the bank, so that if giving doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen at a very even pace monthly, if giving to the capital campaign doesn't come in for 6 months, we're still covered and have time. And the other point, there's a couple numbers I'm going to plant seeds in your head on. Currently, our minimum mortgage payments would cost us $168,000 a year if we paid wherever we pay them from. So if we think about trying to pay them out of our normal operating budget, think about that number, $168,000. So we'll come back to that in a sec. So now let's flip over to the general fund, the operating fund. And last year, we had an expected budget of $947,000 income and expense. We came in under that on both of them. So we only brought in and spent about $920,000 last year. And we were a little $3,000 ahead all told last year in terms of being in the positive. Next slide shows, again, the giving trends. Going back to 2017, our operating budget back then was $864,000. We've grown that, and it got as high as $944 in 2019. Then 2020 happened with COVID, so we regressed a bit. And 2022 and 2023 are both showing that we're right around that $920,000 giving and income. So the next slide shows that we took a bit of a leap of faith this year, that we budgeted for $960,000. So a $40,000 increase over what happened the last 2 years in terms of income. And year to date, we're behind by $13,000 for expenses over income, and we are 83% of the way through the year right now, 10 out of 12 months. But the numbers, the percentages you see there, 77 and 79. So we're behind where we thought or we planned to be in terms of having a $960,000 budget. We're, instead of 83%, we're at 77 and 79. It's close, but anything else I want to say on that? Projecting our year to date, our average income is about $75,000 per month. And so if you add 2 more months at 75, you add 150 grand, you get up to 900,000. So we could be on track to be below what we were the last 2 years in terms of income of the 920. December's usually a bigger month, and so my gut is that we're probably on track to hit about where we were the last 2 years. And whether that ends up with covering expenses or not, we will find out. Next slide is, again, how do we kind of manage our funds, our reserves. And our rule of thumb, like the capital campaign, we keep 6 months of mortgage payments around. For the operating fund, we keep 2. So if we had no income for 2 months, we could still pay all our bills. And we're at that level. We have $166,000 in cash available. So I said before, one number is $168,000. That was if we paid the mortgage minimum per month, it would take $168,000 a year to do that. The next 2 numbers up here are ballpark of what the budget is to cover the head pastor position and the associate pastor position that we had. So ballpark numbers, $135,000 covers the head pastor, and $120,000 covered the associate pastor position. Obviously, we are in a time of transition right now, looking to fill a temporary pastor position. The amount that we had budgeted for the head pastor position, it will be enough to cover for that. We are paying Pastor Rob through the end of this year when he officially retires. And so there will be an overlap if we start the temporary pastor right now. We may be paying for as much as 2.5 pastors for a couple months here at the end of the year. But we've got the cash to do it. So what we're doing right now, before we have the temporary person in place, we are using about half of the associate pastor's salary to cover for the additional resources we've done with like Jeff going to full-time, contracting with Sarah for pastoral care. And so we're paying 1.5 pastors right now through the end of the year, and we may bump that up, but as of the first of the year, we will be back to paying for 1 temporary pastor, and then whatever we choose to in terms of additional contracted like pastoral care if we continue to do that. And the finance team is aware of that, but we're not really the ones making those calls. That's happening at the session and personnel level. Okay. Let's finish with our last slide, and then I can take any questions. The what can you do one? And I like to finish with this one. You know, we're in a good spot. We have been for quite some time. I mean, there's some challenges, obviously, at the staffing, personnel level that we are working through, but from a money management perspective, we are still in a really somewhat envious spot, I would argue. And the ways that I characterize it are, it's like we own 80% of our house. We've got 2 months in savings to operate the place, and we've got 6 months in savings to pay the mortgage on the place. We still have a piece of land for sale that will take a big dent out of the mortgage that is about $2.1 million right now. So ideally, it would cut that in half. And we have seen some increase in giving at the end of this year. So things are good. I will just finish by saying I think that probably our biggest opportunity is getting our number of unique givers up. So we keep seeing new faces. We've got new members joining, and I think a goal of the finance team and the stewardship process, will be to try to, even if you're given $10 a month, it's still great to have participation from as many people as possible. And I think there's some opportunity to grow those numbers. I think that's all I had.
We're going to take questions.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you so much, Jason, for all your work. It's great to hear your perspective. I'm going to show the video. There is going to be questions, right? If you have questions, hold them in your hearts. We're going to show a video from Jack and Nancy Pearl.
I was on the design committee, and we were working with different aspects of the design that all cost incremental pieces of money. We got to the point where we couldn't afford everything we wanted. So we knew that some things had to be removed from the scope. One of those things, regretfully, was removing the canopy. And we did that, and for us, that's been a nagging concern ever since that decision was made. So now we're going to correct that.
And for me, it was very personal because with Jack's disability on Sunday morning, parking in handicap parking and walking over to the entry to the church, it seemed like an awfully long walk at times. Often the doors wouldn't work, and we got to thinking, well, there should be some protection in this area. It would be wonderful for everyone. More welcome, more welcome.
It's interesting because when we got into this, we knew all these issues about mobility. We didn't understand the effect the weather had on maintenance on the building. And that became a big issue, and we see now that that is one of the primary reasons for having the enclosure.
I think we both right away knew what we need. We wanted glass panels so that you didn't feel like you were walking through a tunnel. We wanted protection so that the elements couldn't work underway underneath the edge of the glass at the bottom of the structure. So that was a big conversation piece.
There was a lot of discussion about details, and there was some disagreement. Through those discussions, though, we all came out on the same page of music. What we agreed to is what is being built right now.
I think it was a very smooth process. There wasn't a lot of disagreement. It was kind of a fun thing to do.
Yep. And when we got into estimating the cost of the project, it was closer to $200,000. And so Rob stepped up, took the lead in forming a plan to raise the additional money. And we had meetings for that, and in the end, accomplished the goal.
Well, you didn't ask me about this, but to me, it's like a Christmas gift. It'll be ready to go for our Christmas season. Many more to come.
For me, that's just a perfect story of stewardship, right? It's about welcoming, it's about fellowship, it's about using the talents and the gifts that we have, it's about coming together. So now what I want to do is a little game, right? In the medical school, we call this think, pair, share. And so the idea is for me to give you a minute to think about if you were going to ask a question, any question about stewardship, what would it be? So it can be about the faith, it can be about the fellowship, and it can be about the mustard. For those of you who have heard me talk about stewardship before, right? We're together because we enjoy the faith and the fellowship. But any good sandwich has got some spice to it, whether it's the money, the disagreements, or the working together, right? So if you have a question about stewardship, I'm going to give you a minute to think about it. And then I'm going to ask you to share your question with your neighbor. So if you happen to be sitting next to someone you don't know, just take a minute and remind each other who you are, how long you've been at St. Andrew. I'm going to talk to the people online for a minute. If you have a question and you put it in the chat, I'll be looking for you in the chat if you happen to be listening online. I think we're getting close to ready. That I'm hoping some of you had a question that you're willing to share with the large group. Now, just in case, right, if there's utter silence, I have more content. I have this great video from the session members. But if anybody out there in the audience had a question about stewardship that you're willing to say out loud, I think Chloe's coming to you with a microphone. Thank you so much, Chloe.
So it goes back to Jason's comment about, as clerk, I know we've taken in probably over 100 new members in the last 2 years. I know we're at over 40 this year, and I can't remember what the number was last year, but it was larger. How do we motivate those people to become part of this? I don't see most of those in here. How do we do that? Especially in our current situation without a pastor, too.
Yeah, I have lots of great team members in the audience. Chloe, stay close, right? Because Jason might have something he wants to say. John might have something he wants to say. From the stewardship standpoint, what we like to do is give people lots of choices, right? We want people to give in the ways that are most meaningful for them. So, I'm a mom, and if my kids are going to give, well, I think it's meaningful for them to go to the alternative Christmas market, right? I want them to bring their allowance money, and I usually offer them a double the money. I play a game with my kids to get them to invest some of their allowance money in the alternative gift market. Well, then Jeff also works really hard to try to make it easy, whether you're going to give through automatic withdrawal or you're going to use the online, I'm going to forget the name of the company, so you can give online, right? We try to give people lots of options. We try to give visual and internet. We're just trying to capture people in as many different ways as we can. We know that giving over the generations is very different, right? The way that people over 65 learn to give to their church is different than the way that Generation X or the millennials give.
Yeah, one history thing. 20 years ago, stewardship and the finance team were coupled, and we split it. And so finance has been the bean counters and the reporters, and the stewardship has been the making a plea for funds every year. So I'm not part of stewardship officially. I'm just like stewardship adjacent, I guess. But one thing, I guess, Chris, that I wonder about, I think there's two thoughts. One is, it's the options are there for the giving online, et cetera, but I don't know that if we have something where we couple the event of new members joining with a particular outreach message. Is there and I know we're in a weird pastoral moment here, but is there something that can or is being done every time a member joins where a stewardship person reaches out?
I would say that the people on session and the people in the pastor nominating committee are the ones in control of that, right? That process is pastor dominant, that the welcoming committee involves the pastor. And so whether or not the pastor chooses to include stewardship material is...
Yeah, I think there's an opportunity there. And I think the other thing that I would just say out loud is that metrics, right? If we have some more concrete, how many giving, we call them giving units, right? A household could be a single person or a whole family, but where are we at over time with how many giving units there are? And I know we could dig that stuff up, but we just haven't, I think, done a great job of reporting to ourselves to say, hey, there's a trend here, or there's not, or there's an opportunity. So anyway, those are my two thoughts.
We're going to run that microphone around. Margaret's got a question, and then will you show me your hand so we can predict? If you have a question, we're going to take Margaret, and then I'll be looking for you.
Hi, this is not a question, but it's a thought. When I joined the church, and Al Dusterhoff was here, the thing that he said to all of us was, join a committee, join something. And my thought is that if people who are coming to the congregation can be invited into the fellowship of our congregation in any way, form, be it committee or some kind of gathering, small group, then you have more of an investment in it and you get to know people better. And I don't know, since we're now on the very senior edge of things, we don't really see personally what's happening. But if you could share the joy that you're seeing in all of that, I would like to hear that.
Yeah, Margaret just said exactly what I mean using different words, right? That stewardship is not just about the money. Okay, we've got meat and spice in our sandwich, but really what draws people into a sense of belonging is the relationships, right? The faith that we have, the music that we share. So for sure, when I think about stewardship, right, the folks attending this meeting, it's okay for it to be a tiny group of people because stewardship really is integrated with every other aspect of our church. Every time we attend a group and give something of ourselves, music, energy, time, that is stewardship.
So what Margaret just commented kind of ties into something I've been involved with. Austin and I have been leading what we're calling a new member task force. We realized, Kyle was the person who knew who were the new people coming to the church and encouraging them to get involved and participate. So we don't have that anymore. Nobody's doing that. That's what our little information kiosk is trying to be part of. But our idea with this new member task force, we want to have an orientation at least 4 times a year, once a quarter, during the Learning Academy hour. So if people have children, they can go to childcare, they can be in Sunday school. And this should be led not by the pastor, but by elders, deacons, staff. Any of you interested, come sit with people who are interested in becoming part of our church. We want them to have some history. What's it mean to be a Presbyterian? What's a little history about our own church? And it's that connection piece. A big part of it will be, these are a lot of the teams we have. These are the people you can contact if you're interested in becoming part of that, but sharing that. And then having a time after that hour for fellowship, a light meal. People can share some faith stories. Again, connectedness. That's my word for our church for the next year, connection.
Anybody else have a question?
Is it realistic that we're going to sell this piece of property, or what's the hang-up? It seems like it's been for sale for quite a long time. Do we need to lower the price, or why are we not selling it?
Yeah, thanks. We'll just repeat. The beginning of the question was about the remaining piece of property.
Yeah, John probably can speak best. I know we've had one action intention on making it more sellable this year, but
land sales team is, we've contracted with Welch Design, which is in the process of starting to seek a rezoning of the triangle parcel is what we're talking about. It has been zoned only for, this the city was only interested in, or at least the guidance we got from the planning department before, was that the city was really only interested in approving a commercial use only without residential alternatives. Now, our understanding through conversations with, through Mike Welch and the city is that they would be open to a zoning designation that would include some residential use possibilities, like townhomes, that type of thing. And so we've just started the process of seeking that. I don't think we have an application in. Mr. Welch is working on that. But the thought is, basically through Jeff Edberg, our realtor, that if we can get some residential zoning alternatives pre-approved, that will bring in interested parties that we have not had before. And so it's like our first really good strategy we've had, but for quite some time we did not, through the conversations with the realtor and the planning department, for quite some time we didn't see a flexibility there, but we see it now, and we believe that's likely to happen. Now, once the rezoning application is filed, it still takes like 3 months to go through all the due diligence and all the meetings and everything. But something is actually starting to happen that we think would lead to, in the next 12 months, hopefully a good outcome.
Any more questions? And double check the chat for me if there happens to be any questions online. If you're listening to this program after the fact and you didn't get your question answered, then please, Jason and I and John Benson, really, we want to hear from you. I think we're going to close in prayer, and I want to leave the teaser out there that, the fellowship part, the stewardship part about testimony, right? That Jack and Nancy gave from their hearts. They had a vision of how to keep this church welcoming, and they had a resource that they wanted to share. So I have some more videos like that from our session members that took a step of faith, stepped into something that felt uncomfortable, because that's an opportunity to hear God's voice. Cecilia did a lovely job today. If you hear Jesus say, "Follow me," it might be a surprise. So there's a teaser out there that Jeff's got this great video from the session members, and we'll close in prayer together. Heavenly Creator, 3 in 1, the God who can be everything, who is everything, who doesn't need us but invites us to be part of his work. It is such a privilege to do your holy work on earth, to experience a piece of your heaven on earth. Thank you for the founders of St. Andrew, their vision, their passion to know you, the witness that still stands with us that have grown up in this church. Lord, we thank you for the amazing blessings that we stand in a place of privilege as Presbyterians and members of St. Andrew, that we do have a measure of financial safety, and so we can be creative and envision a future that works for our children and for our diverse community. Lord, guide us in the steps that we make about our money and our time and our talent. And thank you in advance for all that you give us. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.